you have to ask yourself, why am I posting this? Once parents realize that most of their post is for their benefit and not necessarily for their kids' benefit, we're getting the dopamine hit too when we share a cute photo of our kid and people like it and comment how sweet and stuff like that. That's all back on us. It's actually not benefiting your child in any capacity, right? So I think parents really need to look internally as to, why do I feel the need to post this, to share this, to be filming my child at the park on stories and things like that? Is this information private? Does this even need to be shared with aunts or uncles or cousins or coworkers? Is there any chance that they could not want this shared or be embarrassed by this later in life?
Ever feel like you suck at this job? Motherhood, I mean. Have too much anxiety and not enough patience? Too much yelling, not enough play? There's no manual, no village, no guarantees. The stakes are high. We want so badly to get it right. But this is survival mode. We're just trying to make it to bedtime. So if you're full of mom guilt, your temper scares you, you feel like you're screwing everything up, and you're afraid to admit any of those things out loud, this podcast is for you. This is Failing Motherhood. I'm Danielle Bettman, and each week we'll chat with a mom ready to be real, sharing her insecurities, her fears, her failures, and her wins. We do not have it all figured out. That's not the goal. The goal is to remind you, you are the mom your kids need. They need what you have, you are good enough, and you're not alone. I hope you pop in earbuds, somehow sneak away, and get ready to hear some hope from the trenches. You belong here, friend. We're so glad you're here. Hey, it's Danielle. It's 2024. As parents, we are in uncharted waters, trying to navigate our own internet use still, let alone our kids. And while we know to be vigilant in some areas, we may not be considering the implications of other seemingly harmless ways we're using the internet, like posting pictures and videos of our kids to social media without our kids' consent, let alone the lack of privacy that children are born into that become content for influencers, vloggers, and reality TV stars. My guest today, Sarah Adams, is an online safety advocate and expert exploring the state of parental public oversharing, child exploitation, and minor security on social media. Her work creating awareness and critical thought on these important issues has been featured in prominent media organizations around the globe, including CNN, Fox News, Bloomberg, ABC, Newsweek, and more. We start off our conversation by framing it around curiosity and information gathering rather than shame or judgment. She defines some key terms we should know, the impact of the pandemic, and whether private accounts are really private. Together, we walk through the 5 risks to consider beyond just the digital footprint and privacy risks. After highlighting the extreme side of the spectrum, Sarah shares practical tips for the everyday parent, as well as questions to ask yourself before hitting post. This quote of hers, I feel like, sums it up. Using children and their real lives as entertainment for strangers on the internet has somehow become normal, and I would like us all to consider a new normal, one that prioritizes a child's right to privacy, informed consent, critical thinking, and safety online over a parent's desire for online fame. So, let's dive in. Welcome to Failing Motherhood. My name is Danielle Bettman, and on today's episode, I'm joined by Sarah Adams, aka Mom Uncharted. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. I found you, I don't even know how long ago, on TikTok of all places, as I am chronically online these days. And I just aligned immediately and appreciated what you were sharing so much. And I just felt like it was time to bring it to Failing Motherhood because, of course, the internet is another place that we inevitably feel like we're failing as parents.
Yeah.
By the day, by the hour.
I think we can all relate to that.
Yes, for sure. So will you just give a real quick intro of who you are to my audience?
Yeah, of course. So again, my name's Sarah. Online, I go by mom.uncharted. And My platforms discuss the state of parental public oversharing as it relates to, myself, the everyday parent, as well as, momfluencers and influencers, family vloggers, diving into also the child exploitation state of social media, and just keeping our kids on safe and having general discussions about what we are all dealing with in these uncharted waters of parenting in the digital age.
I love the word uncharted because that's very much what it feels like. We have never been here before.
That's I named myself Mom Uncharted for two reasons. I wasn't really sure what I was doing online. I had never really had a social media presence before or tried to put myself out there, my thoughts and my opinions. So I wasn't exactly sure where I was going, but I knew these were subjects I did want to discuss. And, there's no handbook to this. This is new for all of us. And I would like to think we're all doing the best we can, but it is truly uncharted waters. We don't know what the long-term consequences and ramifications of growing up in this digital world is or are. And so I thought just speaking and finding community, a sense of relatability amongst parents, and just having open communication that we can discuss these topics would be beneficial for probably all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not for lack of effort that the parents that follow me struggle. It is very much because they need more information to make better decisions, or they just want to have that insight because they've never parented a kid at this age that they have today before. So that unfamiliarity breeds a lot of insecurity, which then, creates these complexes of anxiety that if you're feeling, it's because you are setting out with good intentions. So it is not at all to bring shame or judgment upon anybody for any previous decisions. It is purely to be able to help us feel well educated and more confident as parents. So that's what I want to kind of frame this conversation around as we dive in. If you would help kind of paint the picture of in 2024, what's going on the internet?
Honestly, what isn't going on the internet? Literally anything you want, anything you desire can and will be found. It's just an interesting time to be alive, really, and to bear witness to what parents are putting out there, what young people are putting out there, what, podcasters are putting out there. It's a lot to navigate. And when we're talking about social media, as parents, we're also talking about screen time. We're talking about gaming. We're talking about a lot of different things. And I think in 2024, a lot of people right now, especially with the release of Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, I think a lot of parents are feeling pretty anxious, pretty overwhelmed, pretty scared. And I think that's another reason why these conversations are important, because I don't have the answers, but I can offer some thoughts and some opinions and some resources, because I think what I would like listeners to know is I'm just the regular average mom. I don't come from a social media background or marketing or cybersecurity or or psychology or any of this. I'm just a consumer of social media. I became a mother in late 2017. I had my second child in 2020, and I'm just riding the wave alongside you, right? And I had interest in this topic, and so I thought I would share, what I see and what I think, and maybe people relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely they do. I mean, clearly you have a big following for a reason, because parents are looking for this information, and they do really feel, I think, understood by you in a way that you come across to say, this is new to me too, or just being able to have a curiosity, right? That kind of drives things.
And I recognize that I do have strong opinions, and I definitely lean more to one side in regard to, not sharing children online and things like that. But again, I'm just navigating it like everybody else. And I came at it from specifically, a privacy and informed consent standpoint. I just believe kids have a right to privacy, and I believe they have a right to informed consent, and that's important. And all the other stuff, specifically in regard to safety and online predators and things like that. That's been very eye-opening for me, because I started these topics basically from like, don't kids just deserve privacy? Shouldn't we just give them a little more privacy and think about how we share them online? And it's, tumbleweeded from there.
Yeah, for good reason. As things continue to kind of escalate and grow and evolve, I think we'd benefit from just a little bit of a vocabulary lesson to start off. So what is generation shared?
Most people would refer to generation shared as those children who have been born into a society in which parents are sharing online, like our lives, their lives, our experiences, our photos, being born into this digital world where, there doesn't seem to be much of a separation between the online world and the physical world anymore.
Okay. And sharenting.
Yeah, a portmanteau of sharing and parenting, right? How parents are sharing their children online.
Okay. Yep. And is there different types of what that can look like right now?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. There is the big ones, the ones that are kind of in your face in regard to the YouTube family vloggers or the really popular influencer / mumfluencers on Instagram. And then there's the regular everyday folks who maybe you have a friend or a cousin or an old coworker who is sharing a lot in regard to their child's life in a smaller circle that may be private, but maybe public. But there are definitely different variations of sharing our kids and our experiences online.
Yeah. Do you feel like it was like a boom in the pandemic, or the pandemic exacerbated, or how do you feel like that has contributed?
Yeah, that is a great question, and one I really relate to, because I became a mom in late 2017, and I followed a lot of mommy people online, specifically on Instagram. And I wasn't engaging. I wasn't active. I was more of a ghost follower. But in 2017, I didn't really think much about it. I thought, there's some community, there's some tips, some tricks, some relatability, figure out what car seat to buy and things like that.
Yeah.
As new parents, we're looking for connection. We're looking for information, right? So it felt really normal. And it wasn't until the pandemic, I had my second child in March 2020, and we were all online more that year at home with a baby. And I just started to really feel uncomfortable with the amount I was seeing shared, whether that was of influencers and their kids or friends and their kids. It just felt that like it was overwhelming. We were seeing kids like wake up and walk to school and what they were wearing. And it felt like all day these kids were being tracked on like Instagram stories. And so, yeah, I would say it was in, 2020, 2021, when society really, like global society, hopped online, that it really was an eye-opening experience. And for me, my light bulb moment was just watching an influencer and realizing, holy, I shouldn't have access to this information. I am a stranger. I shouldn't know about this child's medical diagnosis. I shouldn't have access to this. I feel very uncomfortable. It was just a light switch went on. And I looked at it very differently ever since then.
I can relate to that too. I became a parent in 2013 and had a Facebook, didn't have an Instagram. I wasn't that cool yet. And, would just share milestones and updates with, the family and the people that I had connected there on my private page. And it just all of a sudden just didn't feel right, because I knew we as parents are very vocal about how thankful we are that we didn't have social media in middle school and high school, right? Like, we're so glad that there's not all of that data and evidence just looming constantly, as a permanent recognition of the things that we went through. We really did luck out.
We really lucked out.
And then now I've been hearing that some people, when they meet someone in college and they want to like get to know them to see if they want to date them, they'll go on that college student's mom's Facebook.
Yep.
To go stalk them, because that's where all the information is. And that feels weird and very kind of like dystopian or something. Like, it just, And we all kind of, I think, are starting to feel that vibe. I ended up taking, all my pictures of my kids off of all social media and really don't use them in any imaging or anything, and haven't for a lot of years now. But, it's very much still the norm. And I think that does almost create a sense of disconnection for family that just kind of either expect it or want to stay up with things. And, you can ask me, I guess, or we can FaceTime. But I think that there's likely a lot of listeners that would say, I have a private page and I share pictures there. I'm not an influencer yet. It seems harmless. So let's talk about the risks. And I found that there's a list of 5, I think, that you had on the Kids Are Not Content website. So we can just kind of walk through each of those.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So the first one, digital footprint and privacy risks.
Yeah, so that is kind of what you were referring to, right? A digital footprint is the images and information we're putting online in regard, in this case, to our children that will follow them around until college, until somebody, finds their mom's public Facebook page and can go all the way back to baby pictures and awkward photos and see likes and dislikes. And that could be concerning, right? We don't know the ramifications and the potential consequences of that. We don't know if some of these kids are not going to like that. They're let's, for example, say medical diagnoses are out there for the world, for potential employers to see and things like that. So digital footprint is being mindful of the trail that parents are leaving for their children, a trail that those children did not consent to have, public or private, right?
Mm-hmm. And just because your page is private doesn't mean that the pictures will stay private necessarily, right?
Yeah, sadly. So, you would like to think that private means private, but in the era of the internet, nothing is private. And I have had so many people reach out with stories in regard to their private accounts of where videos have ended up or photos have ended up, or that person who was following me was not who they said they were. And I think I always tell parents, go private with a curated list of friends and family that you know and trust, while also being mindful of the images and information you share, and understanding that nothing is truly private on the internet.
Because you can download it, you can screenshot it, you can share it. And most likely, if you've had a Facebook page since college, like I have, you don't personally connect with everyone that's still there.
No.
800 people, you can't.
No. I think everybody should go through their old Facebook and, unfriend some people and maybe lock down some photo albums and download them to your hard drive and get them off as soon as you can.
Yeah. Okay, so that's digital footprint. Identity theft.
Identity theft. Barclays Bank released a statement a few years ago saying that the rates of identity theft and fraud are going to skyrocket by 2030 because of the amount of information parents are putting online, full names and birthdays, and then where they're born and potential password information, right? It's all kind of out there. And sadly, there are some nefarious people out there who are saving that information and are going to be waiting until children turn 18 to open, credit cards and lines of credit and see what they can get away with. Fraud today and scams are unbelievable what is happening. So just think about how much more advanced they will be in a few years. And by giving full names and personal identifiable information, we're leaving a lot out there for these people to find that could potentially harm our kids later in life.
Yeah. I think I saw a statistic that said 2/3 of identity fraud will be accounted because of sharenting.
Crazy statistic, eh?
Yeah. That is concerning, to say the least.
It is. I think, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because a lot of people always think the risk is just creepy people, predatory people online, but there are so many other risks, and identity fraud is one.
Yeah. So online predators, that's the next one.
Yep. Parents are putting a lot of information out in regard to where their children are at any given moment. I have seen parents out side of schools with their school crest and the name. And I have seen the parks that they attend and the activities and the cheerleading team. And, thankfully, thankfully, I rarely hear about a story about an individual showing up. But I just think that if the possibility is even there, why risk it, right? Another aspect to predatory individuals is the way that they take these photos and the videos and the discussions they have online, on private threads, the advancements in AI, the advancements in Nudify apps. I've seen some of these private chats on Discord and Telegram that are discussing, famous child influencers online. And it is absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting. And to think that a child one day might Google their name and find out a whole forum of predatory adults who were discussing their prepubescent body and what they would do to them. And that's all because, mom and or dad were allowing all these photos and things to be out there. It's really, it could be very concerning, upsetting, and potentially life altering for these kids as they get older.
Oh, absolutely. To say the least, really. And I want to circle back to that, but let's cover the last two. So cyberbullying and online harassment.
Yeah. There's a lot of parents who are posting videos that are embarrassing or publicly shaming their own children. The amount of parents I have seen post videos publicly shaming their own child for, not doing their homework or being a bully or things is really concerning. It's like perpetuating a cycle, and you never know what could be turned into a GIF, what could be turned into a meme, what embarrassing video will be circulating on the internet forever. And parents do have to think long and hard before they post something. Does this video or this image have the potential to embarrass my child later in life or to harm them later in life? Or what happens if their classmates come and find a whole segment on their potty training and things like that? Parents, I would like to think, aren't malicious in their sharing, but they're just not overthinking it. And when it comes to our kid, there are some things that we should overthink because they will have consequences later in life. And another aspect of the cyberbullying is adults bullying children online. I have seen so many adults just bully children for their physical appearance, their, speech, their development, and to find, a Reddit thread later in life that was discussing your physical appearance as like a toddler of a child. It's just, no, I can't see anybody wanting that for themselves or their children.
No, right. And has there been now people of age that were children in those situations that have now, spoken out about that, like as 18-year-olds?
I've had some private conversations with moms of children who were like GIFs and memes and things like that. And they've discussed that, had they known, they would have never posted that in the first place. And I do think there have been people who have spoken out anonymously, family vlogger kids and influencer kids and things like that. But I think we're just starting to hear it, right? It's right. Just the rumblings are starting. Sherry Frankie of the Ruby Frankie 8 Passengers just announced this week she's releasing a book. And that is going to be very insightful and eye-opening to a lot of people. So, I think we're just beginning to hear from these kids of how their parent sharing affected them later in life.
Yeah. I know I read, I don't remember which one. It was one of the Duggar daughters.
Yeah.
Her book. And of course, that's a little bit different because it was a TV show, but still, the same type of...
It's still exploitative, right? And we've heard a lot from Colin Gosling from John and Kate +8 sharing his experience. We heard from Honey Boo Boo, how her mother basically stole the majority of her income. It was first the child stars of the entertainment industry speaking out. Now it's like the reality TV kids speaking out. And next it will be like the online influencer, child of influencer kids speaking out.
Like there's waves. Yeah. Yeah. Because Jeanette McCurdy's book is a similar, child star.
Yep. Allison Stoner has a book. The recent documentary done by Demi Lovato for Hulu, Child Star, the list goes on, right?
Right. Yeah, there was one about Nickelodeon kid stars. I can't remember.
Oh, yes. Oh, what was that one called? I can't remember. But yes, that one was pretty groundbreaking.
I'll edit it back in and post.
Thank you. I appreciate. Yes, the Nickelodeon one.
Quiet on Set.
There we go. We did it.
Yes.
Yes. We did it.
Yes. So I do think that we can connect enough dots that there's damage being done. And we know that the precedent of child stars who have been very much in the light and even consented to it, question around that, whether it was informed consent, but knowing that there's a whole now world of kids who really have no even idea who's seeing them and why and in what moments, it is worth pausing and really considering. And thank you for walking through all those risks, because in some ways, our brains are great at jumping to conclusions about what could happen on the way to school today, what could happen, after school and at the store. And we're quite vigilant in some situations. Here's the deal. If your child is sensitive and smart, yet loses it, is clingy, or aggressive with you at home, they can go 0 to 60 over the smallest things, like when they just don't get their way, nothing changes their mind, and they can't seem to get over it, and you know what you're doing isn't working, and siblings are starting to suffer. You could go to therapy yourself and take your child to therapy and follow all the experts and ask your family and friends for advice and take a course and set up a calm down corner and read all the parenting books and still feel defeated. It's time. It's time to learn the missing pieces of invaluable insight about their temperament that unlocks compassion in you and understanding of how to work with the way they're wired. It's time to communicate in new ways, like a hostage negotiator, to get through to them and cultivate cooperation with confidence. And it's time to eliminate the behaviors that are working to gain control and attention at their root, rather than playing whack-a-mole. Calm and Confident, the Masterclass, is for you. There, you will master the kind and firm approach your strong-willed child needs without crushing their spirit or walking on eggshells. In this free training, I share the 4 critical kind and firm scripts that unlock cooperation in every situation, how to eliminate behaviors at their root, and the path to solidifying the open and honest relationship that you want to have with your child down the road. So go to parentingwholeheartedly.com/confident to access this exclusive on-demand training immediately. That's parentingwholeheartedly.com/confident. That link will be in the show notes. I found a couple analogies that you had shared on TikTok that I think help put it into perspective of thinking like social media like a public park. Tell us more about that.
One analogy that I go back to sometimes is, if you were at a public park, would you bring your child to a public park knowing that there are predators there, but they are just sitting on a bench and watching? They are not interacting. They are not filming. They are just present, but that they're predators. Would you bring your child to that park? And overwhelmingly, the answer is absolutely not. Regardless of if they are not filming or regardless, I'm not putting my child in harm's way or even to be able to be looked at in that way, right? But sadly, online, we know that there are, I think the FBI estimates there are 500,000 active predators online each day. We know these people are here, and yet we continue to provide them with images and videos that they are literally waiting for. And that's really concerning.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just imagining if I was at Target and, somebody just started taking pictures of my daughters or videoing them, how uncomfortable that would make me.
Yeah. Of course. And like one of the classic analogies is, would you give photos of your children to strangers on the street? And a campaign in France recently just did this. And they had, an actress, but she was handing out photos of, her daughter online. And some of the reactions were very interesting. And everyone was slightly like, taken back by this mother just handing out photos and relaying all this information. But I don't think parents realize you're doing that each and every day on the internet. You're just handing these platforms, these photos and this information. And we just need to look at it differently. I think we need to look at it sharing through a different lens. And I personally choose to look at it as our kids deserve privacy. Our kids don't deserve to be products to these platforms and have their human existence, exploited in a form of entertainment online, right? And I guess that's specifically influencers and family vloggers. But, the everyday parent also has to be mindful of the information they are sharing. The amount of comments I receive from people who say things like, oh, I couldn't even stand when my mom was on the phone sharing with my aunt my troubles at school or my bullying or things like that. And now parents are literally online sharing to billions of people their children's struggles at school and their bullying situations, right?
Yes. No, that is such a disconnect for some reason between the online world and the real life world and the decision making that's involved with that. Because I don't think that is malicious on purpose. I think it's just a gap in insight and perspective of knowing the decision that we're actually making, and that being one that's really informed with all the implications of that down the road. But I do think it just does come down to a fundamental idea around children's rights that in the United States, I would argue, kind of doesn't exist. Do you agree?
Yeah. From my understanding, the U.S. is one of the few countries that didn't ratify the UN's rights to children, which is interesting. And one of their main ones is, privacy, right? And I think there is like this capitalistic consumerism that is taking place in North America. And now we are commercializing children's childhoods, right? We are turning them into products to be consumed of online, and it's not a child actor. It's the real human existence. And there's something really icky in thinking that a child was born into a world to be exploited online by the people who are supposed to protect them. And that society is okay with it. And that society follows and likes and engages in this. It is, I would say, a little more prevalent in America, but I've also seen a lot of it in the UK and Australia as well. I would say those are the three that are really focused on like the family vloggers and the influencers and that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah. So let's move into that world a little bit more. Is the only option to unfollow or, well, let me start here. What types of content and accounts do you feel are exploitative?
So I usually say that if you are looking at an account, we'll just say an Instagram account, and the majority of the content is that of children. So the content is solely of a child or primarily features a child, and the account would not be successful without regularly featuring that child. In my opinion, that is child exploitation. And those accounts we should not follow. And I think anyone who is a family vlogger and vlogging child's human existence and not giving them safe spaces and are now their, business managers and their producers, I think we should unfollow them as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good rule. And some of it does seem, quote, harmless, right? Where you come across a viral video of a super cute 4-year-old that's, talking about how, they think this rule needs to happen at home, something about their brother and it's cute and it's hilarious and it's harmless. What's like the darker side of that?
The darker side is, say that video does go viral and now there are a bunch of people potentially like making fun of that child online, turning them into memes, turning them into inappropriate memes. The fact that that child might never be able to escape being that memeified gift child, that will forever follow them depending on what they're doing in a video. Like there's certain videos that predators do enjoy. There's a lot of parents who put a lot of food content out in regard to their babies, eating a banana or licking an ice cream or things like this. And to the average person, it's a baby like licking an ice cream. But to like sick people with twisted minds who are very unwell online, it can be interpreted as something sexual and something different. And for me, that was a really big eye opener because I don't, like the majority of parents, I would hope, don't look at children like that. You don't see it like that. But then once you learn about it,
you can't unsee it.
You realize, oh my gosh, yeah, you can't unsee it, right? And so there's a lot that can happen with innocent videos. And I do want to just say that, like, I'm not out here trying to remove kids from the internet. I don't think it's like this super black and white thing and we're going to remove kids from the internet and protect them. We're beyond that. It's about being mindful with what we share. And there's a difference in a parent who posts one funny video and it goes viral versus parents who are only posting videos of their children for content in hopes that it goes viral because that's all they have.
Right. Right. And it's purely because then that will be monetized and then they'll be able to make money off of that. And that then propels the cycle forward. So let's go to the edge of the spectrum. What are some of the worst things you've seen parents do for abuse?
I think one of the worst will be the phallic food things. That is always very upsetting. There's a lot of like bath time, naked babies and things like that. But I would say overarching, the one that I was focused on the past few years was the parents, specifically mothers, who hypersexualize and exploit their young girls online and have individuals pay for exclusive content of their children. I think that is some of the worst things I've seen.
Ew.
Yeah.
So is it like, educate me on that because I wasn't familiar with that. Is that like dancers, like gymnasts?
Yes. So gymnasts, dance, cheer. There is a community online of these mainly mothers who hypersexualize their children in limited clothing, specific poses, and then sell access for more pictures, more videos, more online chats via subscription service. I have caught them on private websites doing this. Websites like Brand Army has been doing this, and even on meta platforms. An expose earlier this year by the Wall Street Journal and New York Times exposed this, and they have been like slowly shutting them down, but this was going unchecked for years.
Wow. Okay. And I have always had a hard time with, parents that share meltdowns, tantrums.
Yes.
Really hard emotional times of their kids.
I would like to think we all have a problem with seeing these super sensitive and personal moments shared online.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like a golden rule type of thing of like, would you want your moment like that shared?
Exactly.
Because we all have them and they feel very vulnerable.
And it's so interesting because just the other day I had a video of this as it relates to private medical information. And I'm like, could you imagine if your partner or the person you love and trust went online and shared your private medical information with the world and you didn't know and you didn't consent to this? And I had someone call me a Karen. And I thought that was so interesting that some people think like that's like an overstep or something like that advocating for, you to share your own moments and your own information and it should be in your control, saying that they felt like I was being a Karen. It was just interesting.
I am honestly not surprised by that because I still think there is a huge stigma of that it's not okay to tell others how to parent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel that when I first came onto the scene, we'll call it, I was a pretty polarizing figure for a few years there. I was upsetting and disrupting the social norm, and people didn't necessarily like what I had to say. So I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about me telling, because for me, it's not about like a parent, like child exploitation and invading your child's right to privacy isn't like a parenting style, right? We're not arguing over like gentle parenting and authoritative parenting, or
this isn't organic baby food versus regular.
Yeah, like a breastfed bottle, whatever. Like it's not the same. This is like inherent rights of a human being, and what should they just be born into? Should they be born into a world in which they have some semblance of privacy, that the world doesn't know everything about them, and that they're never look back on life and think like, hold on, like, was I just like kind of like a content baby? Like, was that my purpose? Is that why I was like here?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and of course, my entire job, role, career is protecting the parent-child relationship and strengthening it. And obviously, there's a huge concern with the trust between them. If there are a lot of things that are done without the child's consent to go behind their back and share moments, especially if they are very vulnerable coming from the child. And I think I saw, maybe it was on your page, maybe it wasn't, where someone had stitched a video of a mom talking to her daughter, and her daughter was asking the mom, like, Mom, someone came up to me at the park and said she saw me dancing on Instagram. Why did she say I'm dancing on Instagram? I don't dance on Instagram. And you could watch just her like visceral sense of innocence seem to like crack as her mom is just like laughing and still recording this interaction.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's a little warped, right? Like, what are we teaching our children? Like they cannot consent to being in these spaces. They can't consent to their experiences and their lives being used as content. For us as adults who put themselves out there on social media, have a podcast, we know what we're consenting to. And at the same time, we kind of don't, because you never know what is going to happen, where your clip's going to end up, if something's going to go viral. It's still overwhelming to think of, hundreds of thousands of people like watching you, or when one video goes viral and now you have millions of people watching you, like we as adults have a hard time conceptualizing this and understanding it and truly getting it. There's no way kids can. There is no way kids can. I don't care if you asked if you could post that video, because that's a justification parents say often. They'll like, after a video goes viral and everyone's like, you shouldn't have done that, they'll come in, they'll be like, well, I asked my 5-year-old if I could post it and they said yes. And it's like, oh no.
Would they have even would you have been okay if they said no?
Yeah. Right?
Was that even an option?
Right. Well, there's a lot of videos out there where you hear kids saying like, no, stop filming. I don't want a picture. I don't want this. And yet here I am watching that video where a child is clearly saying, don't film me. And not only did you film them, but you posted it publicly online.
Yeah. Oh, that just feels icky. I was talking to 2 other moms this morning. I met with a new CPA accountant firm, and we got on to talking about YouTubers and like channels and things that our kids liked. And we brought up these like family vloggers, and we all just had a visceral reaction of being like, oh, it's just so hard to watch. It's so uncomfortable. Like I don't know how to explain to my kid that these kids, they're having fun. They look like they're having a lot of fun, but they're being exploited by their parents. And like, I can't in good conscience enjoy this type of content as entertainment. So what do you do with that? Because of course kids are drawn to it and fed it, very regularly.
Yeah. Well, personally, one of the first things I did was I just deleted YouTube Kids. My children don't have access to YouTube. I just don't let them watch that app. So that's one thing. They don't see that, they think I'm on TV. They're young, right? They're both under the age of 6. I'm not at the point where I'm having them look at Instagram and TikTok and things like that. But I think it's important for children who do see these family vlogging channels and things like that, for parents to have conversations in regard to why we are not going to watch those channels, because those children do not have a choice in what they are doing. They are not protected. It's not like the actors on the TV shows and the movies they watch and things like that. And we can't support children who aren't protected. We can't support children who don't have a say. And therefore, we're not going to allow that content in our household.
Yeah. No, I think that's completely valid, and great conversation topics to have with older kids if that's, something listeners find themselves in those conversations, which I do. So bringing it back to practical for the average everyday parent who, isn't trying to make money off their kids, isn't filming them all day, every day, but they have their Instagram, they post stories, they have, posts regularly about milestones and updates on the kids. What are some things they should ask themselves before hitting post?
I think you have to ask yourself, why am I posting this? Is this because I think once parents realize that most of their post is for their benefit and not necessarily for their kids' benefit, we're getting the dopamine hit too when we share a cute photo of our kid and people like it and comment how sweet and stuff like that. That's all back on us. It's actually not benefiting your child in any capacity, right? So I think parents really need to look internally as to, why do I feel the need to post this, to share this, to be filming my child at the park on stories and things like that? Is this information private? Right? Does this even need to be shared with aunts or uncles or cousins or coworkers? Is there any chance that they could not want this shared or be embarrassed by this later in life? And as, some general rules, I always tell parents, go private, curate your followers list, and really be mindful of the information and images you share.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, is there anything else we haven't covered that you always want to be sure that parents hear or understand?
I think one thing that I would like to dive into more is also how much us as parents and our phone use and our consumption of social media will impact our children. I personally believe in delaying smartphones and delaying social media for children. I think the evidence is very clear. And I think that we as parents also need to do a better job of modeling good screen time behavior. I'm like everybody else. I can get trapped in a doom scroll, and I can, tell my child, oh, I'll be there 1 minute. Let me finish this email and things like that. But how we are interacting with technology and our devices and our screens is going to be very impactful on our children. So being mindful of that is something that I would like to just have parents pause on and think about, how much time you're spending on your phone in front of your kids.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Sometimes the last thing we're mindful of, because we got a lot going on and it's a long day. And
yeah, we got a lot going on. And a lot of us, our businesses are on our phones and things like that. And so creating some rules, some self-imposed rules around when you're on your phone and when you're not and things like that. I think that will really benefit kids down the line if they see parents modeling good screen time and social media behavior.
Absolutely. Is there any apps or other ways that you find that families are able to stay connected that are off typical social media?
I personally am not connected to any of my family on social media. So I like the good pick up the phone and call.
Okay. Yeah.
I like to text a photo. I will FaceTime family, but I like to, go back to the classics, go back to.
Just so old school.
I know, right? Like, throw it back to a good old phone call or a good old FaceTime. Parents need to remember that we've concocted this world where we feel like we have to share so much. This is all part of like the platform's goal of keeping us glued to our screens more, right? It's not actually the way it has to be. Our parents weren't sharing all these photos and milestones of us, and we turned out fine. And even if we could go back, we don't have the time to go back through thousands of hours of photos and things like that, right? So I think it is time that parents and people are just waking up to the fact that like we are all products for these social media platforms, and it's the attention economy, and we need to stop giving them so much of our attention and focus on the people in our lives who really matter. So, pick up the phone and call your mom, call your best friend, send an email. Oh, send an email with an attachment, right?
So archaic.
Yeah. Well, let's go old school.
No, I love that. When my husband and I were dating in college, we were long distance and we didn't have smartphones. So he had a digital camera that he would have to upload pictures onto his, laptop and then send them as an attachment to an email of his selfie.
Yeah, I remember, coming back from the bar after college and plugging in your little digital camera and putting them all on Facebook and things like that. And I think that also just speaks to the digital autonomy that we have, and that I believe our children should have a little more than we're affording them, right? We came on as an elder millennial, and I got Facebook at 21. I curated my own digital footprint and I was in charge of it. And I think we talk a lot, and we did at the beginning of the podcast, about how lucky we are, how important that is. Well, if we believe that, shouldn't we give more digital autonomy to our children to hop on at, 16, 18 and just be who they are?
Yeah.
And just share what they want.
Without all that baggage of those embarrassing pictures.
Without all that
them.
baggage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how can listeners connect more with your work?
Yeah, so you can find me across socials. My main three are YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. I go by Mom, M-O-M. Even though a lot of people hear me say mom with the U, it's MOM.uncharted. And you can also check out my website at Kids Are Not Content to just learn more about child exploitation legislation worldwide, as well as in the States, and just what sharenting is and why all of this matters.
Yeah, no, I love it. The more educated we are on these matters, the more we can take action. And that is so needed here. So thank you again for that work. Thanks for your time today. And as we wrap up, I have to ask you the question I ask every guest that I have on, which is, how are you the mom your kids need?
I'm the mom my kids need right now by putting down my phone more and being present, honestly. Like, I think being present with our kids, leaving your phone in your bedroom, taking the weekend off social media, showing them that they're the most important things and you're listening to them versus the phone. It's a habit of parents. We have the phone on us. We put it on the table. It's with us all the time. We're filming them. We're not looking into their eyes. We're looking at them through a screen. So I think it is being really present. And in this digital world, being present means putting down the phone more.
Absolutely. Well, they are lucky to have you, and we are lucky to have you today. Thanks again for all your expertise and for sharing it in such a relatable way. I think we'll all feel a little bit better about our decisions tomorrow. So thank you so much.
I really appreciate the time. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Failing Motherhood. Your kids are so lucky to have you. If you loved this episode, take a screenshot right now and share it in your Instagram stories and tag me. If you're loving the podcast, be sure that you've subscribed and leave a review so we can help more moms know that they are not alone if they feel like they're failing motherhood on a daily basis. And if you're ready to transform your relationship with your strong-willed child and invest in the support you need to make it happen, schedule your free consultation using the link in the show notes. I can't wait to meet you. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on.